Welcome to another review from the Four Corners of the Board with your host, Graeme Anderson. Hello everyone, this is Graeme Anderson from Four Corners of the Board. Today, I'm going to be looking at a game called Black Orchestra from Game Salute. Now, it's always nice when a unique theme in a game comes along, and in this game, you're part of a German group trying to assassinate Hitler during the Second World War and end his maniacal ways. Now, it's a unique theme, but does that translate to a good game? Why don't we get to the table, I'll show you how it's played, and we'll come back for my final thoughts. So here we have Black Orchestra all set up. To set up the game, you're going to be separating all the cards into the appropriate decks. There are 7 stage cards up here, which are all shuffled, and 2 cards from each are going to be returned back to the box. There's the Conspirator deck, and there's the Interrogation deck. Next, you're going to be placing all of the items randomly face down on all the cities that have a black square on them, and you're going to be placing Hitler and all the deputy, their chits, on their appropriate locations. You are going to be given a random character to start with, and these characters will store your items, show you your hand limit, and you'll have a track for your motivation and your suspicion. You're also going to be taking a player pawn of your choice and 2 cubes that match your player pawn, which you'll be placing on your character card to track your motivation and suspicion. Each character, if their motivation gets too positive, will have a special ability that they can use on their turn. And finally, you're going to be deciding how difficult you want the game by setting the Hitler's military support track here. So, the game is all set up. Now, what are you going to do on your turn? So this is a co-op game where you're trying to kill Hitler. And to kill Hitler, you need to have a plot card from the Conspirator deck, the items that are listed on there, and then you're going to be rolling dice and trying to roll this many bullseyes on the dice to determine whether you kill Hitler. So on your turn, you have 3 actions you can take. The first thing you're going to be doing is seeing if you start in any location with the deputy or Hitler, and then applying their negative effects. Then you have your 3 actions to take. The first action you can do is called the Conspire action. What that means is for every action you spend, and you can only do this once per turn, you can roll a die. You can roll them all. For every Gestapo symbol that you roll, everybody in your location, including yourself, your suspicion is going to be raised by 1 point. For every bullseye you roll, you're going to be placing on the descent track. When the descent track is full with 3 bullseyes, you're going to wipe them, put them back in the pool, and you can either raise someone's motivation level by 1 point, or you can reduce Hitler's military support by 1 level. You can never go below what you start with. You can draw a card from the Conspirator deck, or you can play one of the cards from your hand as an action. There are a couple different types of cards in the deck. There are restricted cards and regular action cards, which look like this. There's a red card and a blue card. Blue cards are general actions. They'll tell you when they can be played. Restricted ones are like the blue action cards, but they are more powerful and they're dangerous to have in your hand when these certain events come up. The last type of card is the plot card, and we'll talk about this when we talk about how to win the game. Other action you can do is move. You can only move to locations that are currently open, and which ones are open will be determined by what stage you are currently on. So to start the game, you can only go to the 1 spaces, and for each space you move is 1 action. If you're at a location with a face down item, for an action you can turn it over to see what it is, and for another action you can take it and place it on your character card. You'll also notice that these cities have a little black square on them. These are cities you can take an action at, and normally they'll be, if you return an item from your card at this location, they're going to give you a benefit. You can use your special ability as an action. Again, if you have your motivation up to positive or above, each character will have a special ability you can use as an action. And finally, if someone is in jail, and we'll talk about jail when we talk about event cards, but as an action you can be at the Gestapo HQ, you can roll a single die. Anything but the Gestapo symbol will free the person in jail, but if you roll the Gestapo symbol while trying to get someone out of jail, then you are also placed in jail. So, once everybody's taken their 3 actions, then you come to the event cards. And there are 3 different types of event cards. So we'll just have a quick look at here. There are key events, which are identified by a yellow stripe across the bottom. These are just normal event cards, but they'll stay in play until either another event card replaces it or the stage ends. And the reason why these are important is because there are other cards that have a yellow stripe on top, and they will say that if there's an event card in play, you skip this card, you discard it, and draw another one. So you'll be going through the deck a bit faster. The final types of cards are the Gestapo raid cards. So Gestapo raid cards look like this, and they'll detail of what happens. Essentially what happens is anybody who has extreme suspicion is going to be put in jail, and I'll talk a bit about what happens when you're in jail in a bit. Everyone else gets a chance to discard any cards they have in their hand, and if you have any of those red restricted cards after you've got a chance to discard cards, your suspicion will be raised by 1 level for every of these left in your hand. So what happens if you are captured and thrown in jail? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is you're automatically going to lose all of your red restricted cards, and for every card that you have to discard, you have to throw an additional unrestricted card away as well. You are then going to see whether you are able to get through interrogation. To do that, based on your motivation, you're going to be rolling a die, and on your motivation level will determine what is a success or not. If you are not successful, you're going to draw one of these black interrogation cards, and you alone, no discussion with anybody else around the table, will have to determine what you're going to be doing from this card. And there's 3 options you're going to be doing. You're going to do one of them, put it back on the deck, and shuffle it all up. If you are able to roll a bullseye while being interrogated, then you are going to be let free. So you're going to be placing yourself here, and you're free. If you do not roll a bullseye, whether you were successful in the interrogation or not, you're going to be stuck in jail. The last thing that I want to talk about is actually how you win the game. So the way you win the game is if you have one of these plot cards in your hand, and you're going to have to play it. And the plot cards will be where Hitler has to be, where you have to be, and any other options such as, you must be committed or zealous on your motivation level. If you successfully have all of these three things set, you're going to be able to roll a die. The other side is how you can get optional dice. So this card says that if you are this type of character, you're going to be getting an optional dice. And if the bottom one says keys, that means if you take keys and discard them from your player card, then you're going to be rolling an extra die. The one in the middle says poison, and there's a tiny little asterisk beside it. And that means that if you discard multiple poisons, you can get multiple dice. So you're going to be building your pool of dice. So let's say for my plot card here, I was able to get Hitler in the proper location. I'm all of these, so let's say I'm going to be rolling 4 dice. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be first looking how many Gestapo dice I roll. If my suspicion is low enough, there's little Gestapo symbols underneath that. If I roll that, below that, then I'm fine, and the plot can hopefully succeed. If I roll more than what my suspicion is, the plot automatically fails, I get thrown in jail, I lose all my items, and everybody's motivation decreases by 1. If I rolled, let's say this, the plot didn't fail, it wasn't detected, but it did fail because I did not roll enough bullseyes. So I want to be able to roll 3 bullseyes on my turn to try and kill Hitler. So hopefully this will be low enough so I can get enough dice to kill Hitler. So how does the game actually end? Well, you've either killed Hitler by enacting a plot card and rolling enough dice to match or beat his military support. You lose the game is if everyone is in jail, you've run out of event cards to draw, or you draw the documents located in the 7th deck. Anyway, that's how you play Black Orchestra. Let's get back to the table and I'll tell you what I thought. So, what did I think about Black Orchestra? Well, I really enjoyed the theme of this co-op game. The fact that they used real-life characters from World War II, and the fact that the earlier that you killed Hitler, assuming that you did kill Hitler during the game, will determine how many lives you've saved. That really adds to the theme and the feeling of tenseness in this game. Now, I do want to start off with reviews with some of the negative aspects of the game that I had. The first one is the game board itself. If you've seen the walkthrough, the player aid is a large portion of that board. I don't know why they decided to put that on there. It would have been much better, even for the players, to have that put on player cards and removed from the board. If they removed it, that would also alleviate one of my second issues I had with the game board. I wish the cities were larger. I really do feel that the fact that the items are covering up the city benefits was kind of detrimental. I mean, you always had to kind of be moving them or place the items beside the cities. It would be nice if the cities were large enough that you could place both the city and the benefit on the same spot. The other components are fine. The cards are decent quality. The player boards for all the characters are thin, but they're adequate. The player pieces, the little pawns, are pretty cheap plastic. But really all of these are just kind of minor, kind of personal player preferences. My biggest issue with the game is really the ending of the game. And to me, it felt very anticlimactic. You spend the entire game kind of building up and getting the plot cards and using those action cards, getting all the items, trying to wait for Hitler to be in the right spot, and it all comes down to a single die roll. it kind of feels like you're going through an RPG or a dungeon crawl in which you're building up and getting the armor and weapons and kind of spells to get ready for the big boss, and the big boss is defeated in one die roll. Now I understand thematic-wise it makes sense. I mean, if you are successful doing an assassination attempt, well, the person's dead and the kind of game is over, and that's the point of this game, is to kill Hitler. But from a gameplay-wise, it did leave me feeling the ending was, I wish it was a bit more substantial. Now that may sound like it's a negative against the game, and for me personally it is a negative, but the majority of the rest of the game, the whole enacting the plots and getting the plot cards and waiting for Hitler to be in the right spot is really fascinating. The whole hand management between what items you're going to carry, what cards you're going to keep in your hand. Are you going to keep those restricted cards in your hand, or are you going to use them early? But you really want to hold on to them to see whether they'll benefit you more later on. But then the Gestapo raids come and you're stuck with these red cards. Do you even keep them then, or do you kind of throw them away and not take the suspicion? That also trying to make sure you're motivated enough to get those special abilities. And if you lose your special ability, it is something substantial. Being caught by the Gestapo is also very tense with rolling that die to see whether you can do the interrogation. And having to choose one of those options from the interrogation is not an easy thing. So there's a lot of stuff I really enjoyed about this game. And if the ending was a little more substantial, I think this would get an excellent review from me. But as it stands, it's still a very good game and definitely one you should check out. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching another review from the Four Corners of the Board. Please like and subscribe to these videos. You can also follow us on social media, email us directly, or check out our website at fourcornersoftheboard.com.